big race, all either Holden Commodores or Ford Falcons. Also this year, a family affair with 4 second-generation teams, including 5-time winner Jim Richards and son Stephen, and title holder Dick Johnson and his son Stephen.
All dads who are racing drivers would like to think that their sons can sort of follow in their footsteps more or less.
Well, yeah, I can't wait. I mean, it's, like I said, it's a great opportunity and one that you look forward to throughout your career.
A possible career in the making, Charlie Aquilima, Sports Tonight competition winner. The drive of your life with former Bathurst winner Tony Longhurst.
Oh, that was good. That was great. Good driver.
In the opening practice session, Peter Brock in early form, with the fastest lap time only 3 seconds outside the record. Not so successful Larry Perkins, the Seaton team also coming to grief.
Panorama. Brock's time in the Commodore was more than a second inside Dick Johnson's lap record. 1987 winner Peter McLeod has plenty to do just to make the race after crashing his car at over 260 kilometres an hour. He escaped injury. The Commodore, the worse for wear after a wheel fell off. The first qualifying session begins later this morning.
A new lap record on the mountain. Perkins's time shattered the old mark by almost 1.5 seconds. Behind him, Mark Scaife, Wayne Gardner and Glenn Seaton.
Seconds, the crucial commodity, qualifying now against the clock. Glenn Seaton believes slow driver changes in the pits responsible for his second placing at Sandown a few weeks ago. Today, the 30-year-old's only goal, taking the checkered flag on Sunday. Winning Bathurst presents a dilemma for Glenn Seaton. Marking 30 years since his father, Bo, won the big race, Glenn's been offered a bonus. His choice, $30,000, or this marvellously restored Cortina, the very car his father drove to win the race in 1965.
I've asked him if he gives me the $30,000, I'll take the Cortina and we'll sort it all out. But no, at this stage, I think I'll take the $30,000, but I've just got to win it first.
A tough decision, says Bo Seaton, but one he's confident Glenn will make. Do you think Glenn can do it this year, Bo?
I think he can, because last year we had a dream run and we failed in the race. This year we've had a bit of trouble in the first few days, and I think it's going to be a good day then for the race.
Drive of the day belonged to 1993 Bathurst winner Larry Perkins, the Victorian running a record lap of 2 minutes 12.02, almost 1.5 seconds below the old mark. Drama for British touring car champ John Cleland, ploughing into a wall at the crest of the mount. Cleland okay, the car undrivable. Trouble also for David Attart's Commodore. Catherine Lamond, 10 News.
Jenny Motorshead and husband Stephen have been coming to the Tooheys 1000 for 17 years. But last year's one they'll never forget. With motor racing their passion, what could be better? Their son coming into the world at Mount Panorama. And of course, they proudly christened him Brock.
We've been Holden supporters for the last 30-odd years or whatever. And Peter Brock being the best driver in the world.
Oh, I think everyone fully expected it. We had it planned for a while.
Today, baby Brock was given his first car back up the mount to celebrate his first birthday.
Happy birthday to you! Hip, hooray! Hip, hooray!
Mum and Dad say with all the excitement of Panorama, there's no way their son won't grow up with a love for racing.
He'll be here.
Every year until he's old enough to say, I don't want to come anymore, you draw now.
But what happens if Brock grows up and he decides he doesn't like motor racing?
Well, I hope he decides to be a bank manager.
He can own the cars.
Some of the crews in the pits there. This is 11 a.m. coming to you from the Mount Panorama circuit at Bathurst. And for most of the year, it's home to around 5 rural families. But as the great race nears, not surprisingly, they leave home for the duration.
They're all off, and Scaife gets away smartly, but Alan Jones is away smart. But he might be able to turn it out of there.
Last year we were sitting there watching it, and then we sort of thought, that's our driveway there, and I think there were 4 or 5 people standing there, you know, sucking on a few bottles and tossing them over the fence, and thought, hang on, this isn't right.
The real noise is the main race meeting, or those cars, of course, and it's pretty near. When you're close to them on the edge of the track, of course, it's pretty shattering sort of noise.
Mount Panorama, home of the great race, also home to these people.
He goes for Dick and I go for Brocky, so I always like to stir him.
There's always a bit
so
of
we
an
get up the
argument
top there and wave and carry on. And
In a few days' time, these roads and grounds will be packed with drivers and pit crews preparing for the Tui's 1000. For the Mount Panorama families, when the cars roll in, even shopping becomes almost impossible.
You try not to have to go into town unless you really have to. Once you get yourselves organised, you stay at home and you go up and you have a look at the race, you come down and do whatever you have to, and you go back out again and give them a wave and a cheer and sit back down to do your normal old housework.
With the roar of hundreds of cars climbing up Mountain Straight just metres away, you can't avoid becoming part of the action.
if I'm on the phone, I have to shut everything up and then tell the person on the other end to scream, please.
But for many, simply explaining where they live is the greatest challenge.
I ask your address and you say Mount Panorama and they say, oh, that, yeah, where the car races are. Do you actually live there? And so they're intrigued that there are people living right on the track. And as I said earlier, then if you say, well, we actually live in the middle of the track, then they start to get, their voice becomes a bit strange and they change the subject.
But an off-track address does have advantages. Many of the families move out for the weekend, renting their homes for many thousands of dollars, and most of those who stay, like Bill and Debbie, at least rent rooms. But when the Johnsons and Brocks aren't racing each other around this circuit, the track becomes a public road with a 60k speed limit, and that open access sees hundreds of tourists every week come for a slightly slower drive around the track. But for the residents of Mount Panorama, that means tourist duty every day of the year, like it or not.
People with their video cameras hanging out of their car windows, and, you know, some people do stop. Some people, even after the races, do stop at the driveway and say, how do you live here during the race weekends? Are you compensated for living here during a race weekend and things like that?
It's a strange sensation. You could be, working in the garden at the front fence there, and then you hear a car pull up and you wonder what's happening, and turn around and next thing you know, somebody's asking you all these questions about the race and what it's like on race weekend.
It's not only the personal visits they put up with a worldwide television audience of 350 million, that carries responsibility.
Good when it's well kept, the lawn's done, and a bit embarrassing when the washing's on the line or something, but I think the editing boys do quite a good job cutting out the inappropriate stuff.
In Bathurst, Phil Goyen, 11 a.m.
And as the locals move out, and can you hear those engines behind me? Not surprisingly, hundreds of the out-of-towners move in. They're the vanguard of a veritable army of supporters, team pit crews and family who work against the clock to get their cars ready for the great event. Also there, taking up vantage points trackside, the dedicated motor racing fans preparing for their long weekend of thrills.
Mount Panorama is no five-star resort, but the thousands that make the annual trek with their caravans, sleeping bags and portable showers wouldn't have it any other way.
Oh, it's great, everyone comes up here for the weekend, get up here a bit early so you get a good spot, but no, it's great. You come up here and rough it, everyone stands around the fire at night time and have a good time, and everyone just enjoys everything.
For most, the holiday starts early in the week when the teams and drivers are preparing for race day.
Wow.
Down the mountain and the dollars are changing hands more freely than the local casino. The corporate image of the sport has never been stronger, and the punters are like bees to honey. There's even a chance to sharpen your skills on any one of the simulated games. at Bathurst, there's nothing like the real thing. The drivers are the stars of the show, the team behind them, the unsung heroes. For the great race, most leading teams have a staff of about 30, from engineers to mechanics, promotional staff to their own catering unit. It's a week of non-stop action. When the checkered flag falls on Sunday, the circus begins the slow trek out of town, and Bathurst can return to normal.
And while the Tooheys 1000 is a race between Holden and Ford, it's not just the big guys who are out for glory. After the break, the rookie privateer lining up for the event. Well, while Sunday's big race is a showdown between Holden and Ford, there's one privateer who plans to make an impact. It'll be his first time in the famous event, but Paul Romano says he's ready to take on the big names.
But Alan Jones is away smart.
Danger, adrenaline and glory. It's the stuff teenage dreams are made of. But for this young racer, the fantasy is real. At 21, Paul Romano has powered into the competitive world of motor racing as one of the youngest drivers to qualify for this year's Tooheys 1000. Hot on the trail of his father, former Australian sports car champion Bap Romano, Paul's on a fast track to the top. His dream run began 2 years ago in go-kart racing.
He said to me, Dad, I want to go go-karting. Originally I said, oh, don't be silly. Yeah, then he was go-karting, was very successful at that. And then last year he was national champion HQs, and Peter Brock picked Paul up and said that I think the kid's got a lot of talent, and much to my disgust, but here he is today.
Keep it a run to make sure it's all right Saturday. Cross the fingers and hope he's right to run on Sunday.
With a small but dedicated team behind him, this young privateer is gearing up to take his place next to the giants of motor racing. His heroes, Peter Brock, Alan Jones and Glenn Seaton, will no doubt provide his stiffest competition. But behind the scenes, they've also given him advice and support.
Quite often during the year, I've gone up to them and asked them advice of maybe starts and just advice in racecraft.
Motor racing is by far one of the world's most dangerous sports, and Paul admits he'd be lying if it didn't make him nervous.
I can remember in the beginning of the year, round 3 of the Australian Touring Car Championship, coming down this back straight, God, you're doing about 280 k's and it's really scary for the first time.
1 year on the professional circuit, and already Paul's been headhunted by a major team. After finishing second in the IndyCar Championships early this year, the young Queenslander was awarded a scholarship by his mentor, Peter Brock. And it seems it will be the first and only time he enters the Tooheys 1000 as a privateer. Paul's just been snapped up by Philip Morris to drive next year with Alan Jones in the two-car team. Having achieved so much in such little time, you'd expect the success would have gone to his head. But Paul remains surprisingly humble.
Like, I'm only young, I haven't had much experience, but, you know, if I keep plodding along and doing the best I can, that things will turn out good.
Paul's a very level-headed young kid. He's young kid, but I mean, he's fairly level-headed, a typical 20-year-old, I suppose, but he's very quiet and reserved. He's more like the quiet achiever. He's more like his mum, actually.
As for the big race this Sunday, Paul's quietly confident of yet another brilliant performance.
For sure we'll be up front of the privateers, there's no question about that, but also I want to mix it in with the big guns like the professional teams as well, because we actually, last round at Oran Park, we qualified 6th, and we actually were quicker than a lot of the factory teams, which was a good effort.
Not looking too bad. Paul Romano talking there with Nancy Farley. With me now, I've got European racing correspondent Richard Hay. And Richard, what do you think of Paul Romano's chances?
Well, I mean, he's done a fantastic job so far, and I think that he's a guy with a lot of prospects. As far as this race is concerned, I mean, a top 10 result would be fantastic for him, but a top 6 would just be a dream.
Wouldn't it be a dream? I mean, you know, well done then. And you've just come from South America, where you watched our very own Mick Doohan win the 500cc Motorcycle Grand Prix.
Well, that's right. I've had little to do with the 500cc class this year. In fact, I've been following the championship. Mick Doohan has been the man to beat all season, and the only guy that's really been able to push him has been another Australian, which is Darryl Beattie, who Beattie's just a fantastic guy. He really has to be one of the stars for the future, perhaps when Mick looks at retiring in the next year or two.
Well, you're here now, and I suppose we should talk about what's behind us. And you're a bit of a fixture here at Bathurst. This is your 10th time.
Yep, 10th year here at the Great Race, and it really is one of the great touring car races of the world, if not the biggest one now. I think, you know, it does attract the star names. The reigning British touring car champion, John Cleland, has flown out here to compete. He's not had the best of luck so far.
A couple of little prangs, I believe.
A couple of little incidents, yeah, but he's not very happy with himself at the moment. But he's back out here again. There's Wyn Percy, who's a former winner of the race, another British guy. You know, it really does attract the world's top touring car drivers.
So the favourites at the moment, Dick Johnson's team?
I think so, yes. I mean, Johnson has everything going for him. He's been victorious last year. The car has been one of the cars to beat in the Touring Car Series this year. It's perhaps the only concern for them is there's been a slight change in the regulations, which has affected the Fords, and it really depends whether or not they can get them sorted out in time for Sunday's race.
And those changes in the regulations, it's a cutting of something, what do you call it, the under tray on the car?
Yeah, the front under tray, which goes directly underneath the air dam at the front of the car. They've taken 200 millimetres from that. Well, what that means, in effect, is the car has less downforce. It's not pushed down on the ground as hard when it goes around the corners, so it makes them a little slower around the corners.
Yeah, there's been a few complaints there, and so, of course, you know, he won last year, but the race is very different this year.
Yeah,
because of that.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, it is different, but I think once they've had enough time throughout qualifying, the Fords will be back on the pace again. Yeah, there's very little difference at the moment, and I think give them a little bit more time this session and a little bit more work tomorrow, and they'll be there.
Well, Peter Brock, it's his 10th possible win tomorrow, Sunday, I should say. How do you think he's going to go? He'd be the sentimental favourite, wouldn't he?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Brocky, 9 victories here, you know, and looking for a 10th one. He has to be the sentimental favourite, but also, I mean, he is a big chance. He was right up there again last year until an accident put him out of the race. Throughout qualifying, he's been one of the quickest guys again this year. He's a big chance to do it again, and he has to be one of the contenders.
And what about the other contenders? Who are some of your top 5?
Oh, Larry Perkins, you could never discount him. Mark Scaife, former champion with Fred Gibson's Commodore, and of course Seven's own Neil Crompton and Wayne Gardner. They too have a very good chance this year. It's one of the most open races for many years.
Okay, well, thanks very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Letting us in on all the guff about the Bathurst race on Sunday. Well, there we go. When 11 a.m. returns, we'll take an armchair ride around the track, courtesy of the race cam aboard. Welcome back to the Mountain Panorama from behind the wheel. It's good morning to Dick Johnson.
Good morning, how are you?
Very, very well. How's the track? Apparently you've just done a couple of hard laps.
Well, you know, it's a nice day for it. It's nice and cool. Everything seems to be running fairly well for us, so here's hoping Sunday will be the same.
And what speed are you going right now?
About 220 k's. That's no big deal.
Pretty casual. Could you just... Sorry?
Well, wait till we get down here a bit and I'll give you a bit of 285, 290.
Well, why don't you talk us through this half a lap?
Okay, sure. Well, we're coming to the corner they call Forest Elbow, which goes onto the main straight, which is a very long straight. And it goes into 4th, 5th. It's in 4th gear and 5th now. We're just about to pull out and pass Alan Moffat's car. And we're running 265, 270, 280, 285. Back down the gears, just 3rd gear. This is what they call the chase. It's the fastest part of the racetrack. Down underneath the bridge. Back to 2nd gear for the turn on the pit straight. And that's where the checkered flag, and that's the one I want to see on Sunday.
I bet you do.
Yeah.
And when you were going that fast, were you finding it difficult to talk?
No, not really. I leave a little bit in reserve all the time.
You're doing pretty well in terms of the lineup for the race this weekend. Your favourite at 6 to 4.
Yeah, well, that doesn't mean to say very much in this sort of competition because it's a fairly tough field, and with the changes they've had in the Falcons, it's sort of left us a little bit probably short of a few things, like front air dam has been changed and a few things like that, but it's all just part and parcel of this sort of parity racing. They change things on us at the last minute.
And, well, you won last year. Do you think that this year it's going to change it so much you're just not going to have a chance?
Well, I sincerely hope so. You know, we've got a very good package. I think the thing that we've got really going for us is the fact that our guys do a tremendous job in the pits, and not only that, but we've got very reliable motor cars.
Can you just give us in layman's terms what changes have been made to your car?
Well, basically they've taken away some front-end grip from us because they've cut some of the under-tray away, which gives us some aerodynamic downforce at the front, and that makes it very difficult to balance the car front to rear. So it's not understeering or it's not stepping out in the back, but we've been working very hard all week to try and balance the car up, and it's getting a little bit closer.
I bet you have. And your teammate John Bow, he's apparently a very strong teammate.
Yeah, he's been with me for quite some time now, so we know each other, we know how we sort of work. We know basically the cars, we've been working with them for so long, and it's just a very good pairing. We're both about fairly close to being as fast as one another, and that's what you've got to have in this race, because it's 1,000 kilometres of going flat out from start to finish.
Well, just before we go, I just did an interview with a psychologist who said that men get aroused when they flirt with danger. How are you feeling right now?
I can't see anything happening.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Good to speak to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dick Johnson. Looking very relaxed there, going at 270 kilometres an hour. Well, we're coming to you live from Mount Panorama in Bathurst, and we'll be back after the break.
Perkins turned up the heat on the Fords of Glenn Seaton and John Bow to top the qualifiers by just thousandths of a second.
The limits of adhesion were tested early in qualifying for the Tooheys 1000 when Ian Palmer kissed the wall in his Commodore and then slammed backwards into the concrete.
If you're going to have a big accident, you might as well have it here, because at least you know you can get it fixed.
The battle for provisional pole was a race in three between 93 Great Race winner Larry Perkins in the Castrol Commodore, defending champion John Bow, and last year's pole winner Glenn Seaton.
It's going to be an interesting shootout tomorrow, I'll tell you, between there's probably 10 cars there that can be on pole position, so it's going to be a hell of a run.
Hundredths of a second separated the trio until Perkins put provisional pole under his belt with a super lap of 2:11.57.
I'm not too worried about what the Fords are doing, but I think our authorities have got it pretty right, and there's only 200ths of a second between a Holden and a Falcon, but the Holden's come out on front and it's my Holden, so I'm very happy.
Tomorrow morning's top 10 Tooheys shootout will be the final chance for the fast-time drivers to improve before Sunday's race. Mike Raymond at Bathurst for 7 Nightly News.
Peter Brock and Ford's Dick Johnson.
G'day, I can tell you where I'll be this long weekend, going for a drive up here at Bathurst at around 300 kilometres an hour. If you're coming up, there's the Tooheys Top 10 shootout tomorrow, while the big race gets underway at 10 a.m. Sunday, with Channel 7's coverage starting at 8 a.m. I can't see why you'd want to do anything else, but if you must, there's the Royal Australian Navy Open Days, Sunday and Monday, with the Navy celebrating its 84th birthday. If you strum or drum, check out the Australian International Music Show at Darling Harbour, Saturday and Sunday. And there's lots of fun at the Sydney Fish Markets on Saturday with the annual Blessing of the Fleet. Now, you can do all of that and still catch the Tooheys 1000. But if you're driving up, take care and let us do the racing. This is Peter Brock, 7 Nightly News.
This is Skyline, look at it. Wow. Straight over here, straight down.
And what a ride that was. We'll come back to the sounds and fumes of Mount Panorama. Peter Brock is the sort of guy who lives a lot of his life in the fast lane, not only on the racetrack. He's won the Bathurst 1000 so many times now, I think it's fair to say he almost owns it. I'll be talking to him very shortly, but earlier he gave me a glimpse, and I can tell you glimpse is the operative word here, of his style during a ride on the wild side.
Okay, Neil, here we go. This is a great track, I'll tell you right now. sensational this straight. They always keep to the left-hand side here, and just plucking top gear now. Wheels wide over the crest there. Over the brakes late. This is a difficult corner. This is a hard one. Over the power, flat. But it bolts at the outside there. Very light over McPhilliby. It's a beautiful bit of road here. This is the best corner in the country, this one. This is Skyline. Look at it. Wow. Straight over here. Straight down. And you wonder why we come back here. Conrod straight. Long, fast, sensational. Get right across here. Lap of Bathurst.
Wow. Mate, that was bloody fantastic.
Isn't it great?
Terrifying, but bloody fantastic. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, mate. No, it is good fun, isn't it?
Oh, fantastic. Well, it was fantastic, but you had one very terrified reporter there, Peter Brock. It was, I've never done it before, but it was absolutely exhilarating.
It is, isn't it?
Do you still get that same exhilaration when you do it now? I mean, you've done it so many times.
Yeah, I have, but there's a lot of behind-the-scenes rivalry and professionalism, etc., as you expect of any, high-pressure sport. But once you get out there and you start doing it, once you get on that track, it just changes. And it's just a wonderful feeling of, I suppose, exploring the outer limits of the laws of gravity and taking this piece of machinery to do something it doesn't really want to do.
We were talking about, when we had that ride, about how sometimes you've done it so often that you often feel as though you're looking down on yourself driving.
Yeah, I think a lot of drivers, so a lot of sports people do this after a while. They tend to get into that mode where they're relaxed. It might be in a horrendous situation. I mean, in a racing car, it gets up to 55 degrees centigrade. The G-forces are pretty lively, and, your arms are at the wheel, you can see while you're working. But, you don't really notice it. You're not conscious of it while you're doing it. And, in effect, you can almost sort of watch yourself doing it, and the car gets the right apexes and that sort of stuff through a corner.
Does it get any easier?
Well, with experience, look, it depends on your approach to it. I mean, a lot of drivers get to a certain point and they say, look, that's enough. I've just lost the whole energy of wanting to do it. I just don't longer feel comfortable with it. Maybe they're physically unable to do it. Maybe it's time for them to move on to something else in their life. But, while you feel good about it, while it appears like it's the thing to do it.
And you're still clearly feeling very good about it?
Well, I do. I mean, I'm enjoying myself here. I suppose I enjoy mixing with the people at the racetrack now far more than I ever did before. I really enjoy that part of it.
And, OK, let's talk about the race on Sunday. How's it gone this week? Are you feeling pretty relaxed, pretty comfortable?
Yeah, look, I mean, this weekend, as you start off here on Wednesday, it's very easy to lose sight of this whole business of Sunday,
Yeah.
And each day the press arrive and the media make a big thing on who was the 10th
who was
second
fastest. Yeah.
And look, you've just got to say, look, we're going well. And I am going, much to my delight.
You're very pleased with the cars?
Very, very pleased.
Yeah.
But I do know that Sunday you've got to do your homework, you've got to get it exactly right. And if you get those ingredients, or those little facets of what I suppose it takes to win modern day sport, you can win, no doubt about it.
And do you feel there's less pressure on you this year than, say, last year? I mean, there was a lot of money up for grabs last year.
But, look, in sport, though, I've never done anything for money.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. You do it for other reasons. You do it because it's there to be done. And if there's a financial reward, well, big deal. That's great. You don't knock it. But first and foremost, in my mind, last year and this year is let's get the most out of this car. Let's get the team motivated. Let's get onto this track and, really just sort of do it.
Have you had it flat to the boards yet?
No, I think tomorrow in the Top Gun shootout, I've got some fresh new grippy tyres, and I think we'll see what 05 will do then.
All right, Peter Brock, good to talk with you, and best of luck on Sunday.
Thanks, Neil.
Thanks, mate. A short break now, and we'll be back with the story of a lethal population explosion.